Hi everybody, this is LMP Games, and we're back today because it is the day. We all knew that there were going to be something probably soon because of all the Twitter stuff going on with VII Rebirth, but I still think it came kind of as a shock that this was the highlight item at Summer Game Fest. So what we're going to be doing, I've already seen this a couple different times. On different streams. We're not going to be reacting to it today. We're going to be breaking this trailer down. I'm going to be giving you what I think is going on. And we'll talk about some of the story stuff and whatnot. So to say something that should be obvious, spoilers. If you don't want potential spoilers for this game, don't watch this. If you want to hear what I think about what different things in this trailer mean, because I think for there's a couple things here that are really trolly, I think. Because they're doing what Square always does. They are mixing the audio from the game with different scenes that they don't actually take place in. And I'll point out the really specific one that's causing a lot of people to flip their shit. And it shouldn't be, because it's not from that scene. It has no relation to that scene. It's just audio on top of that scene. This is something that Square is masterful at doing. Masterful at trolling the hell out of people. So, well, we're going to go through, break it all down. We're going to talk about some things that we can infer from gameplay mechanics and whatnot from what's in the video. We're going to talk about a couple different things as far as my different theories. I'm going to just fold my theory video into this one. I was going to make an entire series, and I probably still will, about the original game's story, talking about all the stuff in that, talking about Crisis Core. On the Way to a Smile, Advent Children, all that kind of stuff. How that whole story kind of is put together and how it all connects together, and then have that flow into Remake. What happens in that game, why it happens, what I think is going on. And then from there I was going to flow into another video about theory crafting for this game. Well, I was working on that, and then the Ultimania guide came out that kind of like confirmed about half of the things I thought were going to be happening in Rebirth, and that were happening in pretty much everything that was happening in Remake was confirmed in there. And then I just kind of lost interest in it a bit, and then never got back around to doing it. And we're almost at the release of Rebirth, so I'll probably still do it at some point, but pretty much everything in that video, outside of the theory crafting bit, and of course some is being maybe confirmed in this, has already been confirmed or has been talked about ad nauseum at this point. So, but still, I think I'm going to do it because, you know, if you're not going to play the original game, you don't care about the story spoilers from the original game, that's going to be a good way for you to kind of catch up and kind of get an idea of what's going on. I still think it's better to play through the entire RE, we'll call it RE series, because there's going to be Remake, Rebirth, then something next. Before playing the original, because you kind of, when you play back through the original after playing these games, you're going to understand so much more about what's going on, and it will like enhance the original's story for people, I think. What's going on here? So, anyway, so yeah, spoilers, pretty potentially big spoilers. I definitely know there will be spoilers because of things we're going to be talking about, so I'm pretty sure I know what's going on in some of the stuff, some of these scenes. And we'll go over a couple different theories that are out there for some stuff. It's going to be probably like an hour and a half-ish long video, I think. So, strap in if you want to go on that ride. If not, this is your last warning, because we're going to start this. We're just going to go through, we're going to watch this through once, and then we're going to watch back through it again. Okay, that was I was not on the video. I was over there in, whatchamacallit, so here we go.
We're still here at the scene of this terrible disaster, caused by a massive tornado which swept through sectors 0, 1, and 2. Amidst the wreckage of the expressway, search and rescue operations are already in progress.
So this is showing things that haven't happened yet. that we haven't seen before.
Wow.
And here's
Look
this.
At it all. It's so green, even after everything we've done to it.
So this, I think, is after the Mithril Mines.
It may look that way, but in reality,
I'll explain why when we go back through. I was gonna say some general stuff as we're going through, just because of the nature of YouTube. This looks amazing.
5 years. Where's he been? And you're asking me this?
Definitely wide linear.
This is gonna sound crazy.
Chocobo Farm.
As far as I know, Cloud was never in Nibelheim 5 years ago.
The life stream.
Bugenhagen.
It is the very essence of our star.
Everything looks just so good.
Coursing through its planetary veins.
According
Mithril
to
Mines.
Hojo, they're connected to Sephiroth. Shadows of the Mad, I believe he called them.
Sephiroth was in Midgard. We fought.
I have a theory about that voice.
Whatever happened, he's alive.
But why come back now? After 5 years, doing who knows what?
Well now, think we woke it up.
I think this is Mithril Caves still.
more like
Mithril Mines. Caves, Mines, whichever. Red 13 gameplay there in the background. Elena.
Latest and greatest. Elena.
She may be new, but she's still.
I'm not sure where this is at. This might still be Mithril Mines. So there might be 2 boss fights in this area. Again, all the environmental stuff looks insane. Judon. God, Red 13's gameplay looks insane. And here we get our first hint of some game mechanic stuff here.
Keep her away from me.
This is on the ferry.
They say she's a monster. That she can peer inside you.
This is Genova Birth,
into the
I
very
think.
depths of your soul. That she can become those you hate, those you fear, those you love.
Green. Yeah.
The Northern Crater again.
You murdered my dad.
Nibelheim flashback.
You burned my village.
You know that I killed her. So, who is she?
Insane. And this was the more insane part. Not the date, but the 2 discs. Holy hell. I was, everybody's been calling early 2024. Anybody that understood the meaning of the word winter, winter meaning, 2023, 2024, it's going to be, I think, February or March. I don't think it'll be January. I think it'll be like early February, potentially. So let's go back through this here. We're going to go and break it down now. So I tried to keep it as spoiler-free as possible to that point. We're going to hit heavy spoilers now. So again, last extra whatever number of warnings. Spoilers ahead. Don't watch. Okay, we're going. So it just opens up straight up into this thing, and this is throwing a lot of people, I think.
This terrible disaster caused by a massive tornado which swept through sectors 0, 1, and 2. Amidst the wreckage of the expressway, search and rescue operations are already in progress.
Okay. So, what do I think this is? I think that this is I think so. There are 2 different theories here now, right? There's 2 different theories of how the story is being built. There's the multi-timeline theory, and there's the single timeline theory. So let's start with the single timeline theory. The single timeline theory is that when you defeat the Whispers at the end of Remake, you change the past and collapse 2 timelines into itself. So there's one timeline where Zack is alive, and then there's the Remake timeline, and those 2 collapse into each other. And what happens as a result of that is that the Remake timeline team replaces the team from Zack's timeline. So in Zack's timeline, your team is actually dead. Well, in the new merged timeline, Zack's Tifa, Cloud, Aerith, Barrett, Red 13 are all dead. From Zack's timeline are all dead, and the Remake timeline has replaced them in the new merged timeline. What we're seeing here, all this stuff, this is what's left over from the Whispers and Sephiroth and whatnot. All the stuff that happened when you were kind of in the pocket dimension, I think is essentially being reflected back out when you defeat the Whispers, and all that damage happens in the real world. So all this is from the aftermath of that, potentially. Or what I think it actually is we're looking at Zack's timeline here. So in Zack's timeline, as you remember at the end of Intergrade, he goes to the church, you have all those people there. That's because all this crap has happened, right? All the stuff that happens in that pocket dimension gets reflected out into Zack's timeline. It causes all this chaos and destruction, destroys sectors 0, 1, and 2. And in Zack's timeline, your team is dead. So it's just Zack and potentially Cloud, because Cloud was with Zack. Unless, here's the unless bit. Unless Cloud still joins. We don't see Cloud in this sequence, right? He's not in this here. So it's potential. So here's an interesting potentiality, though. What if Zack returns, well, no, I don't think that'd be the case. Like, because I was wondering if we don't see Cloud here because, Cloud gets recaptured by Soldier or something. Like, for example, say that Zack goes back, they get surrounded because, Shinra knows they're coming in to capture him, but then how would Zack have gotten free? Unless Zack gets reinstated as a Soldier, which I don't think is the case, because he got burned from Soldier at the end of Crisis Core. So what I think is more likely is that Zack and Cloud get back. Cloud never joins Avalanche, and this result here potentially happens as a result of Cloud not being part of Avalanche. Maybe this isn't from the Whisper stuff. Maybe this is just a result of what happens because Avalanche gets backed into a corner with Cloud not there, and they have to do something drastic or whatever. It says tornado though, right? So either it's Shinra just saying it was not terrorism, it was a natural event, or it actually was from the Whispers. I'm not sure which. Maybe in Zack's timeline, the team isn't able to defeat Sephiroth because Cloud isn't there. Maybe, or something like that. So in Zack's timeline, you have Zack, maybe you have Cloud, everybody else is dead. And we're seeing that here. Then when we go forward, we have a point where it clips to, where is it? It's after we see Aerith, I believe. So there goes 13.
Progress.
See Aerith back there. And then we cut to a feather falling, and I think that's a representation of a glitch. Like we're having with Cloud's memory, right, where it was like glitching between different things that you could see. We can see these feathers coming down sometimes in Remake. I think this is going to be a representation to the player throughout the game that if you see something, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. It's just a trailer thing potentially too. But I think this is to us in the trailer. It's a representation of. This is an alternate timeline that we're seeing, not the Remake timeline. It's a Zack's timeline. Because then we had this glitch in the video, and then we cut to this, which is, I believe, Cloud opening the gate, right? Well, this then, Cloud opening this door. And I think this door is actually coming out of... It's not coming out of Midgar. If you look at the wall behind Cloud here, it's not Midgar's wall. It's more stylized. I think this is Calm. They're coming out of Calm. Or maybe they're being chased... Maybe Shinra's chasing after them, and they've escaped through some tunnels or something, and they're coming out from some hidden passage through Calm out into the area beyond. Or this could be after this could be after the Mithril mines, the Mithril caves, crystal caves, crystal Mithril. And the reason that I'm pretty sure this is not Midgar is because you can see the ocean over here, right? Midgar is not near the ocean, but this area is. So this is somewhere north east of Midgar, or yeah, northeast of Midgar, which is about where that's where Calm generally is. So, and also it could also, like I said, it could be potentially after the Mithril mines, but I don't think it is there from either because the sea is not that close. You have a lot more area around it, unless they're getting rid of Fort Condor.
It's so green, even after
So, I think this is closer to. I think this is in between Calm. This is like an area between Calm and the Crystal Caves, potentially.
everything we've done to it, it's still going strong.
It may look that way.
This is obviously wide linear. This is a large area, but it's still just an area. God, this thing looks insane.
What's Cloud been?
And just look at this. This has got to be Unreal Engine 5. There's no way this is 4.
Doing these past 5 years.
You can kind of see the popping though if you go back a little bit. Like you can see the texture of the ground popping over here. Like over in this area here, there's no foliage and whatnot. Potentially, but that's something that's just, you know, that could be a console limitation. This is also running on consoles. That's a performance thing potentially. Maybe this is like running in performance mode. But you know, you kind of have to deal with popping. There's no real good way to handle it. Like you can't just go in and do on console anyway. The full-on big meaty tech ball stuff that Unreal Engine 5 can do with using no LODs whatsoever and using the auto LOD system essentially, because consoles just can't handle that amount of data. You might go like, oh, next gen, this, next gen, that. Fact of the matter is, the current gen consoles are 3 years old, so you're using 3-year-old tech. Granted, it was fairly decently cutting edge at the time, but that doesn't mean anything. Technology changes every year and a half to 2 years. So if you're going to do new consoles now, they'd probably be about 30 to 50% more powerful than what we have currently with PS5 and Xbox Series X. That's just the nature of technology. So you might look at this and say, well, how come they don't have all this stuff? Why can't we get 4K 60 on every game? Well, it's because game technology has surpassed the specs of the systems already. Not to an extreme amount. A lot of it's just, you know, game devs working to how they used to work, you know, before we could do that. Some of it's from arrogance, like in terms of like Redfall and stuff like that. But yeah, and the other thing about this is that the bitrate sucks. Modern games are not going to look good on video. At least not trailer videos and stuff, because the encoding bitrate's gonna be like, I mean, can we find that out? This is not gonna be more than like 10K. Can we find out what the bitrate is on this video? It doesn't show the bitrate, I don't think.
Where's he been?
It'd be nice to see the bitrate though, but I'm betting this is like a. I'm betting this bitrate's like, you know, this is like 8 or 10 kbps, which is, you know, a DVD type quality, right? Blu-ray quality video is encoded at least 16 megabits per second. Or I mean, this is probably 8 to 10 meg. And Blu-rays at very minimum 16, and actual production quality Blu-ray DVDs are encoded at 25 megs a second. So this is probably, you know, this is why these look so grainy and not so impressive, is because the bitrate is really low on these. And that's just to keep the video size down. Like, this trailer at a proper bitrate would probably be like 10 to 20 gigs, maybe, potentially, if they were, depending on how they, what encoder they're using, what file type, what container type they were using. So they always encode these pretty low. So keep that in mind too, as far as the visuals go. It'll look way better on the PS5. And let's continue.
And you're asking me this?
This is gonna sound crazy, but as far...
We'll go back through. This is getting into the story bits. We're just looking at the video stuff here right now. So this is obviously the Chocobo Ranch. Part 13 over there. Got our Chocobo over here. Looks like this has been, yeah, this is like the pen over here, I think, based on what this fence looks like. And then you got the stable. And as you can tell, things have been expanded a lot in this area. And I think, like, as far as like how this looks, this is, I think, is what we can expect to most areas to kind of look like, right? Is this sort of level of detail where before you had like this one pen, you had the building, the barn, and you just like, it was like a really small self-contained area. Now this looks like an actual farm kind of thing, right? So I think what we can infer from this is that going forward and what to expect from how areas will look, it's that they're going to look and feel the size they're supposed to be appropriate, or a size that's appropriate to what they're supposed to be like, right? Like the mithril / crystal caves is now going to be an actual cave system, actual mine, not just this dinky little thing you go through a couple things through, right? It's going to be an actual mine, actual, mining kind of stuff set up. We're going to have, walkways, paths. We're going to have tunnels. It's going to be buildings inside of there, which we'll see a little bit later on. And then that also means that Junon is going to be a pretty big city. Junon will probably be the same size as Midgar is in the original, in terms of the number of and size of screens, right? So, expect, a fairly large city to be going through there. Yeah.
Gonna sound crazy, but as far as I know, Cloud was never...
This is kind of cool. Everybody rides on the chocobos. Freaking, I feel sorry for this chocobo over here, carrying Barrett's freaking massive ass. And Bugenhagen. So we're in Bugenhagen's observatory, up in that room where he has the observatory kind of hologram thing, and we're looking out on the planets. This is when we first get to Cosmo Canyon. He's explaining about the live stream and what's actually happening. Bugenhagen looks amazing, by the way.
It is the very essence of our star. The blood coursing through its planetary veins.
Yeah, so this is the Mithril Caves. And like I was saying, we're going to see actual, it's going to be actually turned into a mine. So there's going to be, or at least some sort of like cave system that's like a tourist trap maybe. But these don't look like tourist trap kind of lights, right? These look like lights you might see in an industrial area. So either Shinra's built a reactor here, trying to absorb some of the Mako, or this is, that could be a valid theory too. Because there is Mako in these caves. And that could be what all that piping that we saw in one of the other screen parts of the video was pipes going to and from these caves to pump the Mako out.
According to Hojo, they're connected to...
We're going to do all the audio stuff later on the second pass. That's here, yeah. So this could either be leading up to the Crystal Caves, or this could be part of the Nibelheim Mountains. I'm not sure which. This looks like a reactor back here behind this tower. So this could be leading up to the Nibelheim reactor, potentially. And we'll talk about also where I think this game ends, because I think that's changed now drastically.
And I believe you called
from where I thought before.
Sephiroth was in Midgar.
There's the flashback scene.
Whatever happened, he's alive.
But why come back now? After 5 years, doing who knows what.
So this is in the Northern Crater. We saw some of this in Remake, some of this flashback. Or rather, vision, I should say. It's not a flashback.
Well, now.
This is also the same. This is the same cave systems as Crystal / Mithril Mines. This is, I think, a mid boss in the area, and then potentially you're fighting the Turks later on.
We woke it up.
The reason I believe this is the case because in here we're kind of down in the actual mine. Later on, it seems like we're still in the mine in the cave system, and that's where we run into Lena the first time too, which is why I think that's still there. But it's more built up. It could also be flipped. You might run into them before then, and then run into this guy towards the end. And it becomes an end of area boss, potentially.
Angered it, more like.
Here's the thing, though, too. Here's the other thing, though. You only have Red 13 and Barrett in your party here. So maybe you get split up at some point. Maybe during the fight with the Turks, they destroy the platforms you're on, and your team gets split. So you got Aerith, Cloud, and Tifa on one team, and you have Red 13 and Barrett on the other. And we have another one of those situations where we're split from the party, like... where we split the party, like in Hojo's lab, potentially. It could just be they only have Barrett and Red 13 in the party here as well. You know, that could be the other thing about it. You can't really read too much into what you see in these trailers because they can do things for the trailers that you won't necessarily see in the game. Also, we got a hint here that Red Nanaki has a vengeance mode for his triangle ability. So he has like an actual, he's like Cloud, he has an install mode, which is cool. You see him, that was Lunatic High, I believe. That spinning move we just did.
Feast your eyes on the Turks
And Elena.
latest and greatest.
So I think this is still in that cave system, either at the beginning or maybe towards the end, I'm not sure which. I think maybe more towards the beginning. Well, it's hard to tell, really. If you're going to go based on the trailer, this area we see as we're coming in, and then the fight with the that golem-looking thing was later. But it could also be that the party's split up by this point, and this is where Cloud and Tifa and Aerith go, and Red and Barrett go a different way and run into that. So there might be two different bosses for the two different parties.
Elena.
She may be new, but she's still a Turk.
Because Barrett isn't in this fight. It's Cloud, Tifa, and Aerith here. More open world stuff here. Well, I shouldn't say open worlds. More open area stuff here. So we got Aerith and 13 down there. Red 13 down there. Again, looks insane. Alright, this is where we start getting some more combat things. So we still have operator mode, we still have strong attack. You can see that the health is lower. Like, we're down back to maybe starting health, potentially. There's also something underneath. If you look at the ATB bar, there's something underneath there, right? There's these line things. That's new. That might be something that's part of the combo system, which we'll see coming up, potentially. And every character has those. What I'm hoping you can do is you can import... Well, yeah. Yeah, Max was talking about this back when we were talking about how this game could open up. They're probably going to restart us at level 1, right? And I think this kind of leads to that conclusion. The health being so low, like this. It kind of looks like we're at somewhere near starting health, right? Somewhere near like level 1, like somewhere between level 5 and 8, I think, health. Here. Maybe like 2 to 5, potentially 2. Also, we have our starting gear back. They have their normal weapons. Or at least maybe we still have the weapons, because Cloud's using the Buster Sword here. But he's using a different ability. This is a different Limit Break, I think. Well, it's either a Limit Break or it's a different move. I'm not sure which. But it's definitely not any of the abilities you get from Remake. This is something new. And this is Junon. This is absolutely Junon here. You got Sister Ray there. You got the Highwind in the background. So this is as we're approaching Junon. After we get out of the Mithril Caves. And again, this gives you a sense of the scale of that city. As well. More Red 13 stuff here. And this is where the interesting stuff begins. This is a team-up attack. Yeah, see, look at Tifa and Aerith here. they now both have some of those bars are missing, right? Like, let's see if we actually see if they get used. Yeah, so we have 3 of those notches at the bottom down here. These things have been used, right? And Aerith says Tifa. Ward shift, interesting. So I think Aerith has a new triangle ability, because now it's called ward shift. Before it was called something else, wasn't it? But she says Tifa. She sets up this thing, right? This barrier, and then Tifa's just bouncing all over the place around inside of it. So I think she creates this thing where it traps enemies in one place, and then Tifa just goes ham on them. And then we have this other one here, which is Yuffie with Red 13 doing a team-up attack as well. So team-up attacks confirmed. This is Barrett and Cloud doing one. This is on the cargo ship.
She's a monster. That she can peer inside you.
And it's Genova
the
Earth.
depths of your soul. That she can become those you hate, those you fear, those you love.
Free.
More of this again.
You murdered my dad. You burned my village.
And this is Nibelheim reactor.
You know that I killed her.
Okay. So let's go back and let's talk about the story stuff now. The stuff we were hearing in the background. Specific stuff, not just the entire video, but there's specific places here.
Wow. It's so green. But it's still going strong.
Hanging on.
Where is this?
5 years.
Here we go. So listen to this.
Was wondering, what's Cloud been doing these past 5 years? Where's he been?
And you're asking me this?
This is gonna sound crazy, but as far as I know, Cloud was never in Nibelheim 5 years ago.
So, this is not inconsistent at all with the original game. The reason people think it is either one, they don't know the original story well enough, or 2, they do, they just start getting lost in the moment. A lot of what's being said in this trailer, and probably will be in the game, is all stuff that's subtextual in the original game. You have to actually, like, think about it, read into and between and behind the lines of actual text that are shown, and kind of put yourself into the perspective of those characters. So, Tifa, as far as Tifa knows, from the original game, Cloud was never at Nibelheim after he left. She doesn't know that he was a soldier that was there. Cloud never takes his helmet off, he never interacts with Tifa. When he does, Tifa's already basically half dead and delirious after she gets slashed by Sephiroth. So she has, and I think she also doesn't remember what happened, if I recall correctly, and at least not until you end up in the flashback when Cloud falls into the live stream and you go, or rather when Cloud and Tifa fall into the live stream and meet El. She doesn't really know what happened during that time in the after Sephiroth slashes her, cuts her up. So she doesn't know that Cloud's there. She knows that Zack was there, and Cloud believes that he was there as Zack, and that's why she's confused during the flashback scene. And that specifically is what this is referencing here. This is not new. This isn't something new in the game. This is what actually happens in the original game. It's just that Tifa never actually comes out and says it to anybody. And this is why you kind of have to read behind the lines, between the lines of what's said and how things are portrayed. And yeah, this is like a long-term thread from the flashback, calm flashback, all the way through till the stuff that happens when Tifa helps rebuild Cloud's psyche in the live stream. That's when she learns what happens. So first thing there, just wanted to bring that up because I think that's a really important point that people are saying, oh, this is something different. No, it's not. It's actually what happens in the original game.
The life stream through its planet.
According to Hojo.
Planetary vein.
Here.
According to Hojo, they're connected to Sephiroth. Shadows of the Man, I believe he called them.
So, I think that's Vincent. I think that's Vincent's voice. Here's why. One, the Turks don't know Hojo. People are thinking that it's sung. Maybe. I can kind of hear the inflections a little bit. Kind of, but no, because that voice actor sounds way more. There's more of a twang to that voice, right? Than there was with Sung's voice actor from the original. So unless they recast him already, then no, I don't believe that's Sung. I think that's Vincent. One, Vincent was in the Turks, but he was involved with Lucretia, and Lucretia was a work partner with Hojo. And then Hojo, when he found out about Vincent's relationship with Lucretia, used him as an experiment of his own. So I think that that's him referencing something that he either heard Hojo say or Hojo told him about the Sephiroth clones. And you hear that in the Shinra Mansion, potentially. But I think that is actually Vincent's voice.
Sephiroth was in Midgard. We fought him.
Come back now, after 5 years.
So all this is in the Northern Crater. All that stuff. Is there anything else in here?
They say
Keep her away from me!
So, what's interesting here with Yuffie is that she seems to know who Jenova is. Because she says, keep her away from me, right? So, I'm wondering if we run into Jenova again before this fight. Or somehow Yuffie knows about Jenova, some way, shape, or form, between the end of Intergrade and now. I'm not sure. That one throws me for a loop. I'm not sure what this means. I don't know how she knows who Jenova is or why she seems to be so afraid of her. Maybe it's because of the purple shit. Maybe she's linking that to Nero, and is afraid of it because Nero killed Sonon, and she still has like trauma from that. Potential. That's the only thing I can even remotely think about this scene, as for putting it in the right context. Now for the big one.
they say into the very depth.
You murdered my dad! You burned my village!
You know that I killed her. So, who is she?
Okay. So. God, I wish I could just do this a lot easier. Let's go back here. So, this scene here, I think this is classic Square Enix troll bait. This scene, the audio that's playing over it, has no relation to the scene at all, in my opinion. I think that, okay, so again, spoilers, another thing of spoilers, because we're gonna, if you haven't played the original game, and you don't want spoilers about the original game, and potentially this game, Again, another spoiler warning, massive spoiler here. Give you a moment to decide whether or not to continue watching or not. Okay, we're going to go ahead and go on. So, what I think here... So, I think this is one of two things. And what I think about this depends on where this game ends. Given the fact that this is 2 discs long, I think this game is going to end after... It's actually going to end when disc 2 ends of the original game. Why do I think that? Because of this scene. So, either this scene is as it's being shown and hasn't been changed in any way, shape, or form, and Sephiroth is saying this stuff and showing this stuff to Cloud when he's trying to mentally break Cloud in the Northern Crater in order to get him to give him the black materia. That's what I think this could potentially be. Or this is the audio for this scene is the Sephiroth audio for the scene. Comes from a different scene where he's talking about Aerith. Where maybe somehow Aerith is back in the party. Maybe after Aerith dies, there's a convergence in the timelines or something. Or maybe something specifically happens. Maybe Sephiroth is referencing the stuff in... Maybe like Cloud... Sephiroth actually shows himself to Cloud killing Aerith, like in the original game. But that event never happens, right? But then Sephiroth says, you know that I killed her because I showed you that I killed her. Who is this Aerith? If I did kill her, then who is this Aerith? Because she's not the same person. And I think that could be playing off the fact that this game's Aerith is not the Aerith, not the Aeris. So as some people like to call her, Aeris and Aerith. Aeris from the original game. Someone entirely different in terms of like her developmental and developmental state, knowledge, whatever you want to call it. You know, the Aerith in this game franchise is the Aerith from after Advent Children, as opposed to being the Aeris from the original game. And Sephiroth's essentially saying, well, you saw me kill Aerith, so who is she really? And again, that could be also part of Sephiroth trying to mess around with Cloud's mental state. I think either way, it's Sephiroth screwing around trying to break Cloud mentally. So the question then becomes, one of whether or not you think this scene is one of those kind of composited scenes, or if it's actually what it is. I know a lot of people have been saying, well, you know, Tifa's the one's going to die or something, you know, and people are going to jump on this and say, oh, we were right, blah, 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 blah. And other people are going to jump on this and say, oh, look, they're changing everything or something like that. I think this is just a huge red herring. There was, I forget exactly what it was, but there was one of these in one of the remake trailers too. At least one of them that I remember. So take this scene with a grain of salt. Now, as for where I think things are going. So, let's go over my theories for the original game, which are pretty much have all been pretty much confirmed at this point. So, I was batting at about a 80% rate of actually being right on Remake. So, as long as you're going by the Ultimania guide, anyway. The 20% is related to Zack's stuff, because it doesn't really go into what's going on there. But, so, in Remake, up until a certain point, you are playing the original timeline, the original game's timeline. So so imagine that you're playing through original Final Fantasy VII, but it's just in the format of, you know, Remake's heightened graphics and whatnot. So up until the point where you reach the area in Chapter 2 where the highway collapses, that is the original game's timeline. As soon as that happens, as soon as the highway comes down and Sephiroth appears, the timeline splits, diverges, and now you're on Remake's timeline. And at that precise moment, the planet creates the Whispers, because Sephiroth has managed to find a way to send his consciousness back, or something of himself back, in time from after Advent Children to the beginning of the original game's timeline, thus creating a divergent timeline that's now different from the original. And right from the get-go, Cloud getting sidetracked there prevents him from getting to Aerith when he was supposed to. So that's already caused a change in the timeline. And that's kind of backed up by the fact that when you finally get over to where Aerith is, she's being held in place by the Whispers. And then as soon as you get there, Sephiroth appears, which I think is just Sephiroth screwing with Cloud's perception at that point. Which actually probably is what happened in the first instance that you see him as well. Is that he's messing with Cloud's perception. And nothing actually has changed. And physically in the world around him from what Cloud is seeing. It's just what he's seeing is being created by Sephiroth. Because as soon as you get there, and Sephiroth appears to try and send you away, right? As soon as you get there, Sephiroth appears because he's trying to get you to not meet Aerith, right? Trying to get you to stop and leave the area to not meet with her. But then as he's doing that, Aerith comes up to you and asks if you're okay and whatnot. And yeah, the Whispers have left at that point. And then the interaction happens. And then the Whispers come back and drive Aerith off again because the troops are coming up behind you. And if she was still there, she would have been captured and the story would have happened much differently. So she gets chased off by the Whispers so she doesn't get captured. Because you weren't supposed to get into fights with the Shinra troopers at that point. That wasn't supposed to happen until much later on in that sequence. But you go through and then you get to the train. And at that point, the timeline is now sufficiently different from the originals. And then everything else that happens after that happens. You have some moments where like the Whispers interject to do things like some good examples. Sephiroth, and this is actually a point where Sephiroth is actually manipulating the Whispers, we can tell, because after chapter 4, when you come back, there's a scene where you're going to sleep and then a Whisper shows up and there's dialogue happening and you can hear voice acting, but the name of who's talking is question marked out. It's actually that name is Sephiroth. If you count the number of characters and listen to the voice, it's actually Sephiroth's voice actor. And Sephiroth is basically attempting to make you sleep in long enough that you don't go on the mission to bomb Reactor 5. Again, preventing you from reaching Aerith. But then the Whispers show up and causes pandemonium, which causes Tifa to come over to find you to get you to help her to get to the bar. And then by doing so, they also then injure Jessie so that you have to go on that mission in her place. So again, the Whispers are trying to keep things happening the way they're supposed to be happening. So the mission happens. You end up bombing Reactor 5. You fall down to the church. You meet Aerith. You have all these kind of weird images of that particular scene. And then Reno shows up. And then the rest kind of happens as expected. Then the next major point where things kind of go a little bit weird is trying to remember. I haven't played Remake in a bit, so I'm kind of going off memory here. Maybe that when you're with Aerith in the playground after chapter 5, like after you get through the underground tunnel, you're talking with Aerith on the playground, and she says Zack's name, and Cloud kind of freaks out. That could be the Whispers, or potentially it could be Sephiroth messing with Cloud's perception, so he doesn't hear the name, doesn't remember, because he shouldn't remember yet. Because if he does remember, it's going to change who he is. He'll become less. He'll become less arrogant. He'll become less aggressive, and what happens throughout the game might change because of that. Because Cloud's personality is a huge factor in what happens, you know. Cloud's personality is tinted by Zack's personality at that point, because they're technically the same. They've been merged into the same kind of persona by what happened in Crisis Core. So that might be a thing there. The next section that's different is I think when you get through the train graveyard, you fight the I forget if the Whispers show up in the train graveyard. I think they do. They do a couple different things during that whole sequence. And I think they also potentially have a hand in essentially summoning or powering up the Eligor, maybe. And I think there's also a fight that you fight them when you're going back to the pillar. I think all that's designed to slow you down, because I think you're actually potentially gonna reach the pillar before in time to stop it from being collapsed, right? And they want that to happen because that then, one, allows Aerith to be captured like she's supposed to. Barrett then has the motivation to go on the mission to save Aerith for protecting Marlene and getting her back from Shinra. And obviously Cloud has the motivation to do it because his perception is that she has something going on in the background here. Let's play the entire trailer again while we're talking. Has the motivation to, because he's currently merged with Zack, and Zack was in a relationship with her. So they want to make sure that the pillar still comes down to make sure that all still happens. And then, like, the next major part is at the end where you essentially destroy the Whispers, and they are trying to prevent you from doing that, and from interacting with Sephiroth there. So up until that point, everything kind of goes the way it's supposed to, and then things kind of go crazy because you defeat the Whispers, you destroy their ability to preserve the timeline. Sephiroth absorbs their power. And then you cut to Zack's timeline, where Zack no longer is prevented from dying, and he lives. And then there's this huge explosion that happens in Midgar. But then I think that gets attributed to the Whispers, or the tornado thing that we see at the beginning of the trailer. So at this point now we have 3 different timelines. We have the original timeline, we have the remake timeline, and we have Zack's timeline. In the original timeline, nothing has changed. The game still happens the way it does. In the remake timeline, things are a little bit different, but still generally progressing the way that they're supposed to. And in Zack's timeline, Zack is still alive, all of the team is dead, and it's essentially just Zack and Cloud, and maybe others, potentially, that are alive. So that's what I believe happened in the first game, and a lot of that's been confirmed. The stuff that happens after you defeat the Whispers is the only thing that's kind of yet to be really fully confirmed, I think. It's hinted at extremely that that's what it is, but there's still enough ambiguity that it could be anything, really. So we open up to this game, where we now have our team leaving Midgar throughout Intergrade, that thing in Intergrade at the end. They've left Midgar, they go to Calm. We're going to have the flashback scenes. Then they're going to leave that, go through the normal routes. They're going to go from Calm to the Mithril Caves, Mithril Mines. Through there, you're going to go to Junon, and then from there you're going to go to Costa del Sol. We already know that we're getting to Cosmo Canyon, so we're going to be going through Corel, Costa del Sol, Golden Saucer, going to hit Junon, Chocobo. We saw the Chocobo Farm, so we'll be going there. Fort Condor might be here, potentially. And we also see potentially stuff from Nibelheim, so we'll at least be going up to that point. So what I think is going to happen is throughout all of those, let me refresh. Throughout all of those, the time we're going through the game, we're going to be running into new situations where, not things that change the story overall drastically, but it's like little things. Things like Sephiroth screwing with Cloud, maybe some minor changes here and there, maybe a couple bigger ones, just because of what's been happening with the timelines. I think potentially we might find Jesse at the Golden Saucer, maybe. I would say it's probably a not likely scenario, but we might. If this is indeed a merged timeline, then I would say that we probably have a better chance of running into Jesse at the Golden Saucer, because that will maybe have happened differently, without Cloud being there to kind of influence the group and whatnot. And maybe with, you know, other things that might have changed from Zack coming back with Cloud, that might have changed how things end up. So what I think this game, so this game is 2 discs, right? So I think there's 3 potential places this game ends. So we already know, we've confirmed that we're going up to at least Nibelheim, right? I think that this game will either end at Nibelheim, at the Nibelheim reactor scenes. I think that would be the earliest point it could end. It is 2 discs though, so remember to take that into consideration too. It's 2 discs. The areas are pretty large. They'll take up space, but not that much space. 2 PS5 discs is 200 gigabytes, and from what it sounds like, it's going to be mostly gameplay, right? I think on FF1, or on Remake, the first disc was like the install disc, and then there was a lot of like storage stuff on there, like files and stuff like that. And the second disc was like the data disc or whatever, or something like that. I think in this game, there's going to be more. It's going to be longer than Remake was. I think this game is going to be probably around 70 to 80 hours, is my guess. So, and I don't think that there's going to be a massive expansion on the events that happened. It's just that the areas will be larger, right? So we're not going to add in more things. It's going to be larger and take a little bit longer to get through. Outside of some specific things, right? I do think there's going to be some places where things will be a little bit different. And probably have some more events that happen. But generally, it's going to follow the same kind of flow. It's like the first quarter of this game, I think it's going to be getting to Junon. The second quarter is going to be the Golden Saucer stuff, so going from Junon to the Golden Saucer. The third quarter is going to be Cosmo Canyon and Nibelheim. And then the fourth quarter is going to be maybe up to City of the Ancients, potentially. Maybe potentially Temple of the Ancients. Now, what I think actually might happen, this is my new, that was my previous series, up to City or Temple of the Ancients. I think this game being 2 discs long, I think that means, because the biggest asset dump is going to be Golden Saucer, right? Everything else is going to be larger, but it's not going to be massive on space. Golden Saucer is like going to be a Midgar level type of thing, where there's going to be a lot of resources dedicated to that. For all the minigames, all the side quest stuff, all the events that happen there, all the textures and whatnot. But I think everything else can, aside from that though, there's like not going to be drastically huge amounts of things, right? So what I potentially think is that this game could maybe end when the actual second disc ends of the original game. And the original game second disc ends after the crater. So you go to the northern crater, some events happen, meteor gets summoned, and then the game cuts to I think that's when the disc ends.
According to Hojo, they're connected to Sephiroth.
Or at the very least, it's going to end after Northern Crater. So the next game is going to open up. 3 will open up in Junon with Tifa and Barrett in the room they're in the original game, looking out at meteor coming down. That's where I think potentially this game will end, is before that point, so they can open up there. If they wanted to go with maximum absolute bastard status, they could end it at City of the Ancients after that, and just end the game on that scene. You know, or end the game after that scene, before you leave to go to the Icicle Inn. And that might be where the third game starts. I think that Nibelheim is too early, in my opinion, for it to end. Unless things are just massively increased in multiple places. Then maybe. But, and we saw what they did with Midgar. They increased the size of everything by 3 or 4 times, if not more. And still were able to fit all of Midgar in there. They turned Midgar into an full-ass game. So when they take that vision, scale it down a bit more, because they don't want to do that with everything, but then do, essentially make like the whole market upgrade to other areas of the game. Give a bit of a bigger probably boost to Golden Saucer, then it seems reasonable that at least City of the Ancients could be a stopping point. We're not really going to know until we get more details, right? Until we get more trailers that show other parts of the game. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we get a trailer dedicated to Golden Saucer. That's for sure we're going to be going there. So, what I think is going to happen, though, is we're going to do that. There's going to be some kind of weird twist to the events that happen at City of the Ancients, potentially. Or there's going to be a lot more kind of foreshadowing of things that aren't going to go so well. Or there might even be some subversion of the expectation of that. There's going to be some kind of twist towards that part of the game, whether it's in this game or the next one. I think it's going to be this one. I think they'd be stupid to put it in the third game to like end this before that point, because the impact they could have on the player by putting at the end of this game is massive. We're talking, one of the most insane moments in all of gaming history being used as the ending cutscene for this game. It's going to destroy people if they do that, and that's why I think they're going to do it, because they want spectacle, right? This isn't just about making the game they want to make; they want to make a spectacle of it, and I can't think of anybody way to do that than to do that way. Put that scene at that point. But they do go to the Northern Crater. Then we're gonna see the whole thing where Sephiroth's breaking Cloud. We're gonna have Hojo explaining, what's been going on. I think if they go to the Northern Crater, then, well, I think if we were going to go to the Northern Crater, right, then this area here doesn't make sense to have this large of an upgrade of what it appears to be anyway. Now, maybe it's not as big as it looks. Maybe there's a lot more railroading through that part of the game, where there's just like early on you get separated somehow from Barrett and Red 13, and they're going through their own thing, and Cloud and Tifa and Aerith are going through their own thing, and it's fairly linear through that area, maybe. It looks like it's more open than that, though, right?
They say she's a monster, that she can peer inside you. into the very depths of your soul.
But I mean, we'll just have to see. We'll have to get more information. We'll have to see. But from what I've seen so far, I'm super hyped. It looks like they're doing all the things we thought they were going to do, for the most part. And it's kind of cool because it means that they're putting as much thought into the game as the fans have, which is awesome to see. And frankly is, you know, a good thing. And something they should have done. Because it just makes sense, right? Also, like, you see like the little red thing at the bottom of Rebirth? Or the logo for Rebirth on the meteor? I think that's not just for show. I think this is emblematic. This is a symbolism. This could, you know, again, now I'm getting into like crazy out there theories now. Like looking at individual like logos and parts of logos and sections of characters with specific shading and highlighting and the way things, you know, like this S is this way because Sephiroth has hooked whatever. But if you look at the bottom of this thing here, it's red, right? And what's the first thing you think of when you look at the meteor and think of that? It's when it's coming down and after it's summoned and it's like filling the sky with an eerie red glow as it's like barreling towards the planet. I don't know if that means anything or not, or if it's just, you know, you're putting this here because you want to signify this is a little bit different from the other logo, aside from putting Rebirth in there. I don't know what Rebirth means, right? So if we're going to think about the single timeline theory, Rebirth could mean the birth of a new timeline, which could lend some credence to the one timeline theory. Like the timelines, the remake timeline diverges and then merges back into itself, and because of that, a new timeline is formed. A timeline has been rebirthed into this. Am I saying rebirth or rebirthed? I can't tell. There should be an ed on the end of that. Rebirthed. Into this new timeline. I mean, maybe, potentially. That could be what it's referenced to. But I don't, again, I think it's still two separate timelines. The Rebirth. Well, technically, yeah, at this point, the remake and the Rebirth timeline are two separate timelines. No, it doesn't make sense either, because I think that the remake / Rebirth timeline is separate from Zack's timeline still. So the question then is, what does this actually mean? Maybe it means that Aerith comes back. Which, you know, again, if we're thinking about that scene at the end of the trailer where Sephiroth is, you know that I killed her, so who is this? Kind of thing. So what if Aerith, somehow Aerith comes back? Maybe Aerith returns from the live stream, or maybe somehow in Zack's time, well, Zack's timeline, Aerith is dead, it seems. Maybe somehow Aerith comes back, and Sephiroth's asking Cloud, well, you know that she's dead, so who is this person? Because she isn't Aerith. So maybe it's referring to the rebirth or return of Aerith. I don't know. Again, they haven't chosen these names yet on a whim. Like, Remake is a very specific name. It's referring to the fact that Sephiroth's trying to remake the timeline. So Rebirth has to have that same level and quality of meaning, right? It has to mean something intrinsic to the story of the game. Something that is at the core of the game. So what is that? Don't know. So yeah, that's all I got for this game. I do think that Zack's going to be kind of Laguna. If you don't understand that reference, in Final Fantasy VIII, there's a similar kind of thing going on where you have a main character and team, Squall and Renoa and Zell, Selphie, Irvine. They're all part of your main character team. You're following them through the game, and then at some points, you end up seeing a different team. Laguna, Laguna, Kyros and, who was the last guy? I can't remember. It's been a while. And their story takes place in a different timeline, and or at least at a different time. And eventually, through some crazy stuff that happens, Laguna and Squall meet. And I think that Zack is on a similar kind of thing here, which is that Zack's timeline and the party's timeline are separated. They're happening in parallel, and at some point they're going to meet and intersect, and Zack is going to kind of pop into existence, or we're going to pop into Zack's timeline's existence at some point in this game, potentially. Which the title could also be a reference to. The merging of the timelines might not have happened already, but it might happen later in this game or something. Now, there's one very specific place that probably makes the most sense to happen, and that's at the scene in City of the Ancients. But potentially, the Temple of the Ancients maybe as well. I think City of the Ancients makes more sense, because that's a much greater kind of causality point, right? That event has to happen for the timeline to proceed the way it's supposed to. If for some reason it doesn't happen, or something specifically happens during that point in both timelines, there's potential that they could remerge together, be merged back together. So it could be referring to something like that. I really don't know. But I do think we'll be seeing hints and flashes of Zack's stuff throughout the game. I don't know if there'll be a playable section. Maybe. Where you play as Zack. I mean, they didn't hire a voice actor and make a character model just to have him in like, literally cutscenes. So I would expect that at some point you might have like a sequence where you're playing as Zack. Maybe multiple. It happened like 2 or 3 times in Final Fantasy VIII with Laguna, so I'm using that as kind of like as a guide for this. That's the only other reference we kind of have in Final Fantasy for that sort of thing. So, it'll be interesting to see how that works out. But hey, we're actually under time. Nice. So yeah, that's my theories. I called that... I actually called this name Rebirth way before they announced Rebirth. The way I thought it was going to go was Remake, Rebirth, Reunion. Is what I thought. Now that Reunion's been used for Crisis Core, I'm not sure if Reunion will be the third game's name or not, subtitle or not. But it could still be. Otherwise, I'm not sure now. To be fair, a lot of people thought maybe Rebirth for this. And I'm not really sure. I think like Max's theory was it was Rebirth because it's like you're actually starting a game at this point. You're starting a new game. So you're being rebirthed out into the actual world, actual game of Final Fantasy from Midgar in the first game. Others had different opinions. I didn't really know why it would be called Rebirth, but it made sense on a certain level because of some of the things that happen and can happen in this game. But yeah, Max, I, and a bunch of other people called out this subtitle way before it was announced. I think I actually called this out after I played through the first game the first time. I have a clip of it somewhere. Or I have it in a recording somewhere. So I think probably in the credits for a remake, it's in there somewhere, I believe. Or it could be, I also mentioned a bunch of other times too. It could be somewhere in some other videos somewhere from other streams. But yeah, like I said, I'm batting about 80% on my theories so far for Remake and for Rebirth in terms of what's going to be the game mechanic wise and story wise. The story stuff more reflects back to Remake than does Rebirth, but ideas and things for game mechanics seem to be lining up with what I thought they would as well. So we'll see how accurate I have predicted. Yeah, cool. So comments, questions, leave them below. If you believe in the one timeline theory, put your arguments for that below. If you believe in the two timeline theory, do the same. but try and keep it civil at least. I know there's like a lot of heated. People get really heated when they're talking about this crap when it doesn't really actually matter. Even if you're the hugest Final Fantasy fan, there's no reason to call people stupid or get engaged in flame wars just because of that. Everybody's theories are valid, and they will be validated in time based on what happens in the game. Because I do believe that once we get through the third game, there's going to be a definitive answer as to what's been going on. Because the third game's going to have to wrap up what's been going on. It's part of the story threads that they'll have to resolve. So we're going to get a definitive answer at some point. And it might even be in this game, potentially. Maybe Bugenhagen will have some sort of insight, or just the events that happen will lend credency to one theory or the other. But we shall see. In early 2024. If Square doesn't spoil it with their own trailers like they tend to do once it gets close to release. But yeah. So, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys later.